Coming up on Primetime News, as Korea and Japan marks the 50th anniversary of normalized relations, leaders of the neighboring countries use the opportunity to begin thawing ties that have turned frosty in recent years. And the MERS outbreak in Korea is showing signs of slowing, with the daily number of new patients standing in the single digits for 9 straight days. But the government gears up to tackle the impacts of the viral disease on the domestic economy. The finance minister says he's mulling all possible measures, including an extra budget. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Monday, June 22nd. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. Korea and Japan celebrate 50th anniversary of their diplomatic ties today.
And the two countries' leaders attended ceremonies hosted by each other's embassies, displaying their commitment to improving ties strained over historical and territorial differences.
Our Choi Yu-sun starts us off.
At a reception hosted by the Japanese embassy in Seoul, President Park Geun-hye said this year will offer a historical opportunity for the two countries to take their relationship forward.
과거사의 무거운 짐을 화해와 상생의 마음으로 내려놓을 수 있도록 만들어 나가는 것이 중요합니다. 양국이 그런 시작을 할 때 국교 정상화 50주년인 올해는 한일 양국이 새로운 미래를 함께 열어나가는 원년이 될 것입니다.
The leaders of the two countries haven't met for summit talks as relations have soured over historical differences from Japan's colonization of the Korean peninsula. One of the most contentious issues is the Japanese military's coercion of Korean women into wartime sex slavery. President Park said it's the duty of both sides to resolve such issues while cooperating in economic and non-political areas. At an event hosted by the Korean embassy in Tokyo, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe vowed to work with President Park to rebuild their strained ties, as their cooperation with Washington is vital to peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific.
Let's reflect on the past 50 years and the progress we have made, so we can move forward in building a new generation together.
While speculation rises over a leaders' summit becoming reality, President Park's message to Prime Minister Abe's envoy earlier in the day reflects her position that it's Tokyo that will need to make sincere efforts to resolve the historical issues. President Park said she hopes the Prime Minister will carry on his predecessor's statements of remorse about Japan's imperialistic past. Abe is due to clarify his position when Japan marks the 70th anniversary of its defeat in World War II later this year. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
On this very significant anniversary for Korea and Japan, we trace back the steps of how normalization of diplomatic relations affected both countries.
And our Hwang Sung-hee highlights the key moments of the past 50 years and shows us where the two nations currently stand.
On June 22, 1965, Korea and Japan agreed to begin a new chapter in their relations, leaving behind decades of unfortunate history. The normalization of their diplomatic relations, a result of 14 years of lengthy negotiations, secured economic aid for Korea and post-war settlement for Japan.
The Korea-Japan Treaty officially came into effect at 5 p.m. on June 22nd, leaving behind the unfortunate Korea-Japan relations of the past and paving the way for a great new history.
With the financial help of Japan, Korea rose from the ashes of war and underwent major growth. Half a century later, the two neighbors are the closest of economic partners, with bilateral trade volume jumping nearly 400-fold. But unresolved issues remain. In their treaty, Seoul and Tokyo failed to address Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of hundreds of thousands of Korean women. The issue came to light in 1991 with the testimony of one of the victims and is now the biggest point of contention between the two neighbors. Seoul is demanding a sincere apology and compensation from the Japanese government, while Tokyo claims that the issue was resolved by a 1995 landmark apology issued by then Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama. There are a number of other thorny issues, such as Japan's territorial claim over Korea's Dokdo Island and Tokyo's bid to list several wartime industrial facilities as UNESCO's World Heritage Sites. Whether or not the 50th anniversary of the normalization of relations can be a turning point for the two neighbors remains to be seen. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Unfortunately, even cultural exchanges between Korea and Japan is taking a turn for the worse due to the current political atmosphere.
Just look at the number of cultural events held in the two countries. It has slumped to a third of what we had seen 10 years ago.
And that would be 2005, designated the year of Korea-Japan friendship. Our Sun Jung-in takes a look at the current state of affairs.
When Korea's top Hallyu star Bae Yong-joon announced his wedding plans with actress Park Soo-jin, the news quickly spread to dominate Japan's entertainment headlines and social media sites. In November last year, Korean pop group JYJ held a concert in Tokyo Dome, drawing a staggering 100,000 fans. Hallyu, or the Korean wave, is still popular in Japan, but it's quickly running out of steam. On the political front, Korea and Japan haven't held a summit in 3 years, and the number of cultural exchange events has dropped sharply due to the ongoing territorial and historical issues between the two countries.
There used to be around 300 diverse cultural events every year, but now, despite the fact this year marks the 50th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations, we are expecting fewer than 100 events.
The significant turning point for Hallyu came in 1998 when Korea decided to open its doors to Japanese pop culture. Flowing the other way, hit Korean dramas like Winter Sonata and Jewel in the Palace caused a sensation, followed by the K-pop boom, which swept major charts in the country's music industry. But the Korean wave hit a barrier when the popularity was challenged by right-wing Japanese politicians whose negative comments towards it were fueled by Tokyo's diplomatic friction with Seoul. There are growing calls to put current political issues aside and rekindle the dying embers of bilateral cultural exchanges in order to re-energize mutual understanding and trust between the two nations. Sun Jung-in, Arirang News.
Moving on to some other news, North Korea has called off its plans to participate in next month's 2015 Summer Universiade set to take place in the city of Gwangju, just south of Seoul. This came in an email sent to the organizing committee on Monday. Pyongyang cited the opening of a United Nations Human Rights Office in Seoul tomorrow as a reason for the cancellation. The committee, however, is working with the Unification Ministry to verify the email. The International University Sports Federation was included on the recipient list, but the federation said it did not receive the email. Pyongyang's move comes as no surprise, though, as the regime has a track record for abrupt cancellations dating all the way back to the 1988 Summer Olympics and the 1986 Asian Games.
More from the Hermit Kingdom. A North Korean delegation has left for Moscow in a move that signals a deepening of ties between the two countries. The regime state-run news agency said Monday Choi Tae-bok, the Speaker of the Supreme People's Assembly, is leading that group. Pyongyang did not clarify the reason for the visit, but experts say Che might be on a mission to explain the current situation in his country, as it is suffering from a severe drought and possibly food shortages. The visit comes as North Korea and Russia have declared 2015 a year of friendship between them, agreeing to increase high-level exchanges and boost economic cooperation.
Now, shifting gears to the latest on the MERS outbreak here in Korea.
The health ministry said last week that the spread of the virus could be on the decline, and with only a small number of cases being reported over the past few days, it may be the case.
That's right, and we now go over to our Myung-gil at the News Center. Myung-gil, fill us in.
Yeah, the Korean government has been mobilizing all its power and resources to contain the dangerous virus on the back of mounting criticism for its weak initial response. But for the first time since the first case of the disease was first confirmed here on May 20th, it looks like things could be getting under control. Just 3 more cases were confirmed on Monday, all of which were transmitted within hospitals. And a small village in Boseong County, Jeollanam-do province, where some 30 people had been quarantined for 2 weeks, has been deemed MERS-free. As of today, Korea has confirmed a total of 172 infected patients and 27 deaths, with 2 more lives being claimed today. The patients who died were aged 84 and 97, both with pre-existing illnesses. Meanwhile, the number of suspected patients in quarantine dropped for a 4th straight day. Nearly 520 people were released, leaving the number still in isolation at just over 3,800. There are now 50 people who have recovered from MERS. Taking a look at the figures, the number of MERS patients undergoing treatment is clearly on the decline. We now have 95 patients being treated at medical facilities, which is almost 30 less patients from June 17th, just 5 days ago. It's not overwhelming, but it's a positive sign and a hopeful one at that. Ji-hye?
Well, more positive developments, reinforcements coming from overseas. I hear President Park Geun-hye invited foreign medical experts to seek better ways to effectively counter the outbreak and other new types of contagious diseases, right?
That's right, Daniel. The presidential office announced the plan today, saying the meeting will take place this coming Wednesday. 5 experts, 2 from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and 3 from the World Health Organization, will attend the meeting, accompanied by Korean medical experts. President Park will discuss with the experts methods to overhaul Korea's quarantine system for contagious diseases and also detail the agenda for a global health summit to be held in September in Korea. The Global Health Security Agenda, which was launched last year, is designed to help create a world that is safe and secure from infectious disease threats and is composed of 44 countries. Prime Minister Hwang Ji-hye also said Monday that when the MERS outbreak is contained, he would investigate the government and hospitals for any problems encountered while taking appropriate measures to tackle the virus. That's the latest on the MERS update. Back to you.
All right, Myung-gil, thanks for that report. We appreciate it. Now, on the second day of interpellation sessions at the National Assembly, the MERS situation was again a central topic.
This time, discussions focused on whether a supplementary budget plan is necessary to boost the virus-hit economy. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
Lawmakers' main concerns on Monday's interpellation session were about the government's plans to stimulate the economy amid the MERS outbreak. 9 top government officials, including the Prime Minister, Finance Minister, and Trade Minister, attended the Assembly session focusing on the economy.
Will the Finance Minister secure a supplementary budget to assist those affected by the MERS outbreak?
Even if the outbreak is contained during the early stages, it's already greatly impacted the economy. Thus, we will examine an optimum level for stimulus plans, including the supplementary budget.
Although rival parties all agree on the need for the supplementary budget, they stress that ways to secure the budget as well as its effectiveness should be clarified. Regarding follow-up questions about the government's possible budget deficits this year, the finance minister said the government will suffer deficits to some degree, but that the situation has improved compared to last year. Last year, the government recorded a deficit of nearly $10 billion in tax revenue. The government's measures for supporting the economy's most vulnerable income bracket was another focal point of the session.
What are the incumbent administration's measures to assist the low-income bracket?
The government considers providing jobs for people to be the most important measure to lessen the burden of the low-income bracket. We also aim to pursue increasing household income, reducing living expenses, and providing direct assistance to the most vulnerable classes, such as small business owners and farmers.
Lawmakers also questioned the officials about the government's commitment to counter the nation's economic challenges, such as ballooning household debt and measures to help farmers cope with drought damages. The 4-day interpellation sessions will continue through Wednesday. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And it's not only the government that's pushing for efforts to shape the negative impact of the MERS outbreak on the economy. Business circles are also being proactive to ensure that the country remains on the path to recovery. Kim Ji-hyun reports.
Korean business circles stepped up efforts to shrug off the blow dealt by the MERS outbreak on the country's path to recovery. At an emergency meeting led by the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Chairman Park Yong-man on Monday stressed the importance of carrying out economic revitalization plans to foster investment and employment. Park says the country's service sector, including the tourism industry, have been the hardest hit from the outbreak as people have refrained from engaging in outdoor activities. The number of foreign tourists visiting the country is expected to drop by 82% during July and August from the same period last year to around 202,500 people, incurring losses of around $98.7 million. In response, the group called for cooperation between government and business circles to bolster consumer sentiment. The group also requested for the normalization of dealings with some 130 foreign chambers of commerce and industries planning to visit the country. This comes as foreign buyers, in particular those from China and the Middle East, have asked to delay investment deals since the MERS outbreak. Park asked the government to carry out its economic revitalization policies according to plan, including its pledge to support small businesses and execution of fiscal expansionary measures. Kim Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Foreign investors bought more stocks than they sold on the Korean stock market so far this year, but that trend did not apply for this month due to lingering uncertainties at home and abroad. Kim Min-ji has the details.
Foreign investors have snapped up a net $8.3 billion worth of stocks in Korea's main bourse so far this year. According to market operator Korea Exchange, the stocks they sought out most were those in the chemical sector, which were picked up at a net $1.6 billion, followed by shares in the IT sector and transportation industries. However, for June alone, foreign investors became net sellers of Korean stocks, offloading about $300 million. Overall, offshore ownership of Korean stocks fell nearly 1 percentage point to account for 33% of the local market.
Strong share prices have induced foreigners to sell their stakes on the main bourse. They are also turning to futures as the current share prices may be overrated. Besides that, unfavorable conditions in Greece was also a negative factor among investors.
He added that the MERS outbreak in Korea has also raised uncertainties among offshore investors. Experts do expect a turnaround once the outbreak gets under control and if the Greek debt situation gets resolved. But with the U.S. Federal Reserve on track to raise interest rates later this year, it's likely that foreigners will remain net sellers for the time being. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
3 sets of Korea's oldest medical book series titled 동의보감 have officially become national treasures on Monday. The Cultural Heritage Administration said the series, which literally means Mirror of Eastern Medicine, was first compiled by a royal physician named Heo-jun during the Joseon Dynasty. The 3 sets that were promoted as national treasures were part of the encyclopedia's first prints from the 17th century. The entire 25-volume series of 동의보감 was listed on UNESCO's Memory of the World Register in the year 2009.
For the top international headlines, we connect now to our Paulie at the News Center.
Our focus today, EU leaders make last-ditch efforts to resolve the Greek debt crisis. Taliban militants attack the Afghan parliament, and Apple gives in to Taylor Swift over its new music streaming service.
But Paul, let's start in Europe. Leaders of the 19 Eurozone nations have gathered for emergency talks with Greece. What does Athens do at this point to stay afloat?
Well, in order to avoid defaulting on its debts, the Greek government is in need of another financial rescue before the deadline next week. It has to come up with $1.8 billion to repay the IMF, money it says it doesn't have. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras arrived in Brussels for the summit on Monday. He'll be holding final marathon negotiations with the heads of the European Commission, the International Monetary Fund, and the European Central Bank, among others. Back in Athens, many Greeks have high hopes that a breakthrough would be reached, but not at any cost.
Yes to a deal, but not with further measures. No more austerity measures. People are very tired. It is the 6th year of the crisis, and it's a lie that there have been no reforms. There have been a bunch of reforms over the last 5 years. Enough. We are very, very tired, and our future can't continue to be ominous.
Ahead of the 11th hour talks, Prime Minister Tsipras proposed a new offer to its international creditors on further economic reforms. The European Union welcomed the gesture, calling it a good basis for progress. However, it's still unclear if the proposals will be enough to form a last-minute deal before Greece runs out of cash. And turning to Afghanistan, the Taliban militant group has launched an offensive against targets across the country, including at the heart of the Afghan government. Chaos erupted on Monday when a Taliban fighter driving a car loaded with explosives rammed into the parliamentary gates in the capital city. 6 militants then marched on the compound but were later killed during a 2-hour gun battle with Afghan security forces. Kabul's chief of police said all lawmakers inside were safe. However, 19 others were left injured.
A car bomb was blown up near the front gate, and 6 of the insurgents were trying to enter the parliamentary building. Our security forces resisted and did not allow them to enter into the House of Parliament, and all 6 insurgents were killed.
At the same time, Taliban insurgents captured a second district in the northern province of Kunduz after days of heavy fighting with local troops. Afghan officials say nearly 150,000 civilians are trapped in the district. And finally, international pop artist and American sweetheart Taylor Swift has apparently come out on top after going head-to-head against one of the biggest players in the music industry. In an online post Sunday, the 25-year-old threatened to hold back her latest hit album from Apple's new music streaming service after finding out the company would not pay artists during the free trial period. And in less than 24 hours, the tech giant reversed its policy. Apple's senior VP Eddie Q announced the change of heart through Twitter, saying they had heard the call by Swift as well as indie artists. The move comes just days before Apple Music launches in 100 countries as a direct competitor to the market leader, Spotify. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Today is summer solstice, having the longest day of the year, and we had 14 hours and 46 minutes of daylight today, and usually monsoon rain comes after the summer solstice. So this week, the monsoon season will begin first in the southern provinces, but up north, we'll have to wait until next month. And looking at Tuesday, it's going to be a scorcher with temperatures surging to the 30s nationwide under a mix of sun and clouds, but there's still a chance of isolated rains in some of the inland regions, so an umbrella could come in handy. But also gear up with sun protection as well. As we can see, the UV index is forecast to be very high in most parts of the country tomorrow, and especially people in Chungcheongdo and Gyeongsangdo provinces will have to be aware because UV index could be hit extreme levels in the afternoon. And taking a closer look at tomorrow's temperatures, Seoul rises to 30, and Daegu and Gwangju get up to 31, and Busan climbs up to 26 tomorrow afternoon. And as for the other parts, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 30 and 25, while Dokdo rises to 22. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
If you want to reinvigorate your five senses, there's no better place to be than that garden. Well, that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Do join us at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.